Hey everyone, what's going on? If you've been booting up Mortal Kombat Legacy Kollection and waiting for that first chunky fix to land, this is the one you've been hoping for. The latest console update is out, and I've spent time looking through what changed, why it matters, and what you can actually do with the new options the moment you fire it up. I'll keep this super conversational, like we're hanging out and comparing notes after a few sets, because there's a lot that just got better, and a few smart quality of life tweaks that will make your next session feel way smoother. For reference, the patch number you'll see on PlayStation is 1.03 thread slash 1.00 and that's the only time I'm going to mention that number because I know repetition gets old fast. The important part is what it does for you, the player, not the digits in the corner of the screen. Let's start with the big ticket item people were begging for: input latency. If you were feeling like your character had a little molasses in the joints, especially on consoles, you weren't imagining it. This patch includes broad input latency improvements across all games on PS4 and PS5. That's not marketing fluff in a trailer, it's right there in the notes. The effect is that your button press should map to an action more crisply, which is crucial for timing-sensitive links, punishes, and just having that classic arcade snap in your hands. If you're the type who likes to test this out, pick a consistent move with a tight cancel window in UMK3 or MK2, go into training and run a pseudo-science test by counting jump-in punish success rates before and after. You don't need a high-speed camera to feel the difference when a game stops second-guessing your timing. Online play got some love too, and not just in a vague stability sense. The online audio buffer was improved, which matters because audio hiccups are one of those sneaky immersion breakers that make a match feel janky even when the frames are fine. There's also a fix for the connection filter setting not applying correctly. If you set your connections to avoid rough matches and felt like the game ignored you, that was a thing, and it's addressed here. That small fix is going to save people a lot of frustration long term, because it's the kind of setting you toggle once and expect to trust every time you queue up. One of the neatest usability wins is that combos have been added to the in-game move lists for the titles where that makes sense. You know that moment where you're trying to remember whether a run cancel starts with forward or back, or if that string ends with a high or mid? Being able to check routes quickly without alt-tabbing to a wiki or a decades-old GameFAQs thread keeps you in the flow. It's a small, modern touch that respects your time and lowers the barrier for anyone returning after years away. Pair that with the various fixes to the fatality timer option and the halved hold time on the pause button, and the whole collection just feels less fussy to navigate. Less waiting, more fighting, which is exactly what you want in a compilation that's meant to be a living museum and a playable time capsule at the same time. Speaking of finishing moves, here's the flashy crowd pleaser. One-button fatalities are now available across all the arcade titles. Before anyone clutches pearls, remember you can toggle this per game. If you want the pure ritual of nailing the classic button dance from memory, nothing's stopping you. But if you're streaming, showing a friend the game, or you just want to punctuate a match without doing homework, you flip the switch and the UI overlay will show you which input to press. It's a fun party trick, a handy accessibility aid, and honestly a great teaching tool because it encourages people to explore more finishers without the friction. Head into the options menu inside each arcade title, look for the fatalities setting, enable it, and you're done. Then go flex in style without the awkward pause while you try to recall if that was a sweep range or close range finisher. There are also some very specific fixes that show Digital Eclipse is combing through edge cases, not just throwing a blanket over everything. Missing audio in the 32X version of MK2 has been restored, which matters for folks who grew up with that slice of history and want it to sound right. MK4 received additional improvements, which is huge because that game can be temperamental when modernized. UMK3 had a particularly nasty issue where a scorpion fatality could cause the game to reboot. Yes, reboot. And that's been addressed. On the Genesis side, stability has been improved across the board, and a quirky problem with MK3's cheat menus not unlocking properly is fixed. They even snuck in some small localization corrections and tweaks to MK Trilogy's training mode. None of these on their own are headline material, but together they reinforce that the collection is being tuned across its full, messy, wonderful sprawl. Let's talk about how you'll feel these changes in practical terms. If you're primarily offline, the latency and move list upgrades are the stars. Pick your favorite ladder, test a few bread and butters, and you should notice more consistency in execution and a faster path to the information you need. If you're revisiting MK4, fire up some of the characters that used to behave a little weirdly post-launch and see if they feel steadier. If you're the type who cycles the compilation's music while browsing the museum content, the music player's general stability updates mean fewer odd skips or hiccups while you read or watch the documentary segments. It's not glamorous, but it's the kind of thing you appreciate after a long session when it just works. If you're mostly online, this patch is a stepping stone. It fixes some real pain points and smooths audio and matchmaking filters. But the really big deal is on the horizon. The team reiterated that an online arcade feature is coming, which is exactly what a lot of us wanted at launch. The ability to create public and private lobbies and actually hang out in a room with friends instead of mashing quick match. Think old school arcade vibes, if but with modern lobby convenience. It's framed as coming in the next few weeks, along with additional fixes and features. You can already plan a community night around it because this is the piece that lets you keep a stable room, invite folks in, and run sets without requeuing or crossing your fingers with matchmaking every time. Platform-wise, here's how the rollout looks. PlayStation players are covered right now, both PS4 and PS5. Xbox One and Series consoles are slated to get the same patch within the week. So if you're on Microsoft's side, it's not far behind. On Nintendo hardware, this one's a bit more coordinated. The developers plan to ship these changes alongside that bigger online arcade patch. So Switch owners should see the combined goodness when the lobby update hits rather than as two separate downloads. It sounds like a staged plan rather than a delay for delay's sake. And if it means a cleaner all-in-one update on that platform, I'm okay with that. Either way, the message is clear. Everyone is on the train. Some cars are just pulling into the station a little later. Quick tip for verifying you're patched and good to go. On PlayStation, highlight the game tile, hit options, and check the update history or version details. You'll see the new build there. Once inside the collection, hop into a game and open its options to confirm that the one-button Fatalities toggle is present. That's an easy visual cue that you're running the new code. If you're on Xbox later this week, repeat the same process in the game's Manage menu. On Switch, once the online arcade patch lands, the presence of the lobby feature is your obvious green light, along with the same Fatalities toggle inside the arcade titles. I also want to call out how nice the pause button timing change feels in practice. Cutting that hold time in half does not sound like a game changer on paper, but in a game where you're constantly jumping between practice, settings, and a quick reference check, it adds up. You'll also appreciate it when you're recording footage and you need to pause at just the right frame to capture a specific sprite or pose. It reduces those micro frictions that over an evening could add up to a sense of drag. This is exactly what patch notes should do. Take the little annoyances that everyone silently tolerates and sand them down so you never think about them again. A word on expectations. If you were extremely sensitive to the initial input lag discourse, you're going to notice an improvement, but whether it hits your personal gold standard depends on what you're used to. Some folks play on PC with very specific setups and ultra-low latency displays. Others are on living room TVs with multiple processing settings turned on without realizing it. If you want to give the patch a fair shake, turn off any extra image processing on your display, set your console to a 120 Hz output if your screen supports it, and then test your usual combos. You'll be able to feel whether this lands where you need it to. And if you're still waiting for lobbies to cement your online plans, keep your eyes peeled because that feature is the make or break for a lot of community events and weeklies that want to run sets in a persistent space instead of a revolving door of quick matches. The other nice thing about this update is the museum curation vibe it keeps reinforcing. Restoring the 32X MK2 audio and tuning MK4 might sound niche, but it speaks to the philosophy behind the collection. Preserve the weird corners and home versions with the same respect as the arcade giants. For folks who collect hardware or just grew up jumping between cartridge and cabinet, that authenticity matters.